Hi there and welcome. I'm so excited about this project and this haberdashery kit. I do have to say, I've been looking at a lot more of them. I think I told you in the preview video that I was really inspired by Nicola Mason's little kit that she made, and she used Carrie Ann over at the Shabby Art Boutique, her digital kit, this little haberdashery kit. And so, but I've also been looking into this a little bit more. And these little sewing kits, these lovely little sewing rolls or sewing kits that are kind of folded up, they're also called a hussif. And that's an old term that came from, it sounds like England. So in the 18th century. So it's like a little sewing kit that was you could travel with. And so what I've also seen is a little bit different style of how they're made. So when I finished up the video, the last preview video, I had told you we would be doing, this is just sort of a bed sheet, just a base cotton piece with a little bit of batting and then another piece. So we would sandwich them. And I had shown you that I would be doing one sort of in this vertical configuration, if you will, with some lace across it and a pocket, and it would be something that we would fold in a trifold. So as I've looked at these more, I have decided that I'm actually going to make two. So I am going to make a trifold, but I am also going to make them in the opposite orientation. So it's horizontal, but I'll show you that here in just a minute. But also what happened was I started and I cut my bed sheet wrong. So I tossed that. And as I was going to cut another piece, I came across some of these vintage napkins that I have, these cloth napkins. So I decided to switch over to this piece. And just really quick, I'm going to just kind of go over this base fabric that you can use. So I just grabbed one of these vintage napkins and it was very pink. I've got some blue ones, just these soft vintage napkins. And then I tea-dyed it. So it's now a vintagey pink. Okay. You can also you can just use a fabric as well. This other one that I'm going to make, this one is going to be the vertical one. So I'm going to make this vertical one out of this piece of fabric. Okay. And this, you can use anything. I mean, this was actually a cute dress that I saw in a shop, and I was like, oh, I love that. I swear I have the worst trouble with I just want to buy clothes. Even my granddaughter is like, oh, grandma would really like that, but she would cut it up. Even just in a regular store. And that's what this was, but I just thought this was a cute little dress. I loved the fabric, so I took it home and cut it up. But you can use just about anything. You know, bed sheets that are cute are great. Some of these old shabby ones, this green one is really nice. And, you know, this too, this is just a shirt. This was a shirt and it's got a nice texture in it. That would be a nice fabric. So you can use just about any fabrics. Or you can use some cotton or muslin and then cover it in lace. So again, as I was researching these hussifs or these sewing kits, I found that many of them are made like this. So instead of being vertical, like a vertical trifold, they're made also like this, kind of horizontal. And you can do as many pockets as you'd like. So some of them have more pockets, like three or like four or even more. And then it folds like this and it finishes like that. But when you open it, your pockets are like this to hold all of your things. Okay. So I'm going to make one like this on the kind of horizontal. And I am going to make this second one um, this little vertical one. So it'll be upright and I'll put pockets here. And this one is actually, it's going to be quite a bit easier because if you just take two pieces of fabric, um, then your base is already done. Okay. So this one, there's going to be a lot of work done on the outside and then on the inside. So lots of lace, and so this one is going to be more labor intensive. So if you want to do, if you, and also if you're just a big, beginner and you just don't have a sewing machine or you don't sew a lot, I'll do a fair bit of gluing on this one too, just so I really want this accessible to anyone at any level. So, you might be an expert, on a sewing machine, and so, but you can also glue them. So, okay, so I'm going to give you the measurements of these. And again, you can decide how big or small you want this. My plan for mine is I'm going to use this little bit bigger one that opens up on this kind of horizontal plane, that I'm going to use this for my tools. So I use a lot of, I mean, you have your needles and your awl and your little scissors and seam rippers and measuring tapes and all the things, right? We have so many little tools that we need. So I'm going to use this one as my little tool kit, and then I'm going to use this one as just, for lace and ribbons. So this one is going to open up like a trifold, and then I'll have some lace here, and then there'll be lots of, laces and buttons. So I'll do laces and buttons, and I really want my really good, antique laces, and also my silks. I have a lot of really beautiful silk ribbons, and they're just kind of all over the place. I would love to have them all tucked into a nice little kit like this. Okay, so I'm going to show you both directions, and then also just a little bit easier way to do it, and then this one will be a little more complicated because we're going to design the top and the inside and the outside. Both of them are made the same as far as two pieces with a sandwiched bit of batting in the middle because we want it just nice and soft. Okay, so let me tell you the measurements that I'm going to be doing. So this one is just about 5.5 inches in height, and then just about 12 and a half. I'm going to be making my pockets or my sections just a little over 4 inches actually on both. Um, but this one's only about 5.5 inches. And in centimeters, that is about um, 14, 14 in the height, and then 32-ish in length. But again, you can work that out. If you want wider pockets, if you want skinnier pockets, little ones, you can do that too. So it's up to you, but that's the size that I will be making this little lace one. And then this one is, for my tools, is going to be, this one is almost 7 inches by 13, 7 by 13 in inches, which is 17, almost 18, about 18 centimeters by 34, just under 34 centimeters. Okay. So that is going to be the size. And so if we just start with this one. So this is what I plan to do with this one. Again, we've cut 2 pieces of base fabric along with our batting piece. Okay. And what we're going to do is I will show you. I'm still going to design it similar to how I had showed you in the preview, but the way I'm going to do mine is I am going to put, I showed you before again that it was long ways like that and we fold it up, but I am going to do this one in this direction. I'm going to put a little pocket here and then cover it with some lace. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate that twice. So I'm going to have this here with a pocket and then another section down here that's designed the same. So there'll be two pockets like this and like this. And then this top piece, I'm going to round it out, and then I'll just have something decorative here that folds over. So I'll have two sections. And again, I'll be putting tools in here, and then this will be rounded. Okay. And so what I'll need to do is I'll need to take one of these, and I will mark it off, and then I'm going to sew in my pockets. I'm going to design this and sew it in, because all my messiness, all the sewing is going to, I want this on the, obviously on the inside. Okay, so that's going to be the inside. And then on the outside, I've decided the way that I want to do this is I'm just going to cover this whole piece with just some lace, just like lace fabric. This one is going to be, there's going to be lots going on, different laces, and I'll put some cute charms on it and different things, and it's going to be quite busy and dynamic. There's several different laces going on and all kinds of things. So for me, on the outside, I want to just cover this in some lace, and not make it all super decorative on the outside. Now you can, if you'd like, if you, again, we'll section these off, and then you could design each one with, lots of stuff going on. Again, you're going to want to do that before you sew it together, right? So we're just going to independently make the inside and the outside. And then once they're finished, then we will put them together and do the sewing, because we don't want that. If you sew it first, your sewing is going to show through on your opposite side. So for mine, I just decided I want to do this lace, and I just found this piece of this lace it's really lovely. This was a little girl's dress at a thrift store, and it was vintage, and I think I paid $3 for it, and I got a ton of lace out of it. But I want you to see the color. It was bright white, and this was very pink, pale baby pink, or not really pale, but very pink. Once I tea dyed that, it just gives it such, pinks are so lovely to dye them with some coffee or tea. It gives it such a lovely vintage pink. But this was a really bright white, and I just dipped it in some coffee and tea, a coffee and tea blend, and I got that. Okay, so big difference. So I am going to just put this on here, and I'll scooch this up here. So then you're just going to see that nice vintagey pink through that lace. Okay. And so I'm going to cut the pieces and get this ready. But the outside is going to be a bit more simple, as I was talking about. Um, Obviously, I'm going to put lots of cute stuff on it. I'll put some of these ribbons, a bow, and that really cute little charm with the scissors, and all kinds of stuff. I was looking at some appliques to put on here. So it'll have all kinds of things going on. But again, it'll just have this base of, just kind of solid lace. Okay, so that's the idea to get started here. And then, so I will go grab a couple of things and come back, and we will map this out. We'll start by just sectioning off the size on both pieces, so we know what pieces we're decorating, and then we will work on that one next. But we'll get started with that. Okay. Okay, so the first thing I did here is I am just marking off where each of those pockets are going to be. Okay, so what I did is I did 4.5 on this section, 4.5 on this section. Then that left this one at about 4 inches. So I had a little bit difference. You can do these really even if you would like, but I am going to round this one out. And when you look at this, it's going to be the fold over here. So I'm okay with it being a little bit smaller, and I also want it rounded out. So what I did is, so I took this piece, and again, I love to use one of these quilting squares, but you can, certainly use your ruler. So I measured out, gosh, that light is terrible. I measured out 4.5 inches, and then I just used, this is actually a Stabilo all pencil, just a white one. You can use a fabric marking pencil. You could use just a really pale pencil, depending on what lace you're using, if it's going to cover it up. But just so I can see that 4.5 inch mark. And then I measured this one at 4.5. And then I gave that one a little white line there. And then, so you can see those are just pretty pale on there. So that's not going to cause any issues. And then again, same thing here. Just marked that off, 4.5, 4.5, and that left me 4. And then this piece of lace just has a nice rounded edge already marked off, but I'll show you when you, if you want to do something rounded, I mean, I want mine to just be slightly rounded on that top end. So I'm going to mark that off. And what I would do, what I am going to do here is, so I'm going to just mark that. And then when I go to cut this, I'm going to fold it in half, right? And I have the markings on there. I'll fold it in half and then follow the one mark, because then it will come out even. Otherwise, I'll keep cutting at it until there's nothing left. I've done that a million times. Okay, so I will cut that off on both pieces, and I'm going to mark that off on this one as well. And you can make your edge however you would like. You can have it much more, coming down to a point. You can do it just slightly rounded. You can keep it square if you like the squared off look. If I was going to use that piece of lace that I showed you earlier, that one looks really nice square. I wouldn't want to cut that lovely piece. So yeah, you can do it square, you can do it rounded, you can do it more envelope-like and more pointed. So whichever style you like, just create that edge on there. And then once we have, so I'm just gonna, I'll go off screen and cut this real quick and get that rounded edge. And then I'm gonna cut my pieces of lace. So I'll come back with all of those done. Okay, so now I have, again, measured that out and marked it off. So I've got a 4.5 inch section. I've got another 4.5 inch section. And again, this one was 4 inches, so it's slightly smaller. And I just found a shape that I liked, and I put that along there. And then I folded it in half. I marked it off and then folded it in half, and then gave that a cut. So so now what I did that with both pieces. So I have the, both of those pieces done. And then I also did it with my piece of batting. So now what I have is I kind of have that structure ready. So of all three pieces. So here's the batting, but when I fold this over, there's the line I can see, and then this is going to have that rounded edge like that. So that's, and again, it doesn't have to be perfect. Mine's a little choppy, it's fine. It's all going to be covered. It's going to be covered in lace, and I'm going to put lace around the edge, which I'll tatter as well. So there I have my little pouch, my little kit all ready with the, as far as the shape. Okay, so now, so again, if you are gonna, let's say if you have a piece of lace or whatever you're gonna put on this, if you have a piece that's big enough, you can just lay that out and cut your lace, and then You could just pin it because we'll sew the outside. Okay, we'll hold off on this piece just for a bit. But for me, I am going to when I use this, I just have these chunks. So what I'm going to need to do is I'm going to need to cut pieces that are just, the 4-inch square. I'm just going to have to cut those pieces out. So I'm going to have to sew them along the square, which you can do as well. Um, I'm also thinking about a nice little piece of lace. I'll show you this lovely technique, which I want to do on the inside as well. So at the seams, I think what I will do is show you how to do, there's just this technique like this where you take a piece, just nicely tattered lace, and you sort of fold it as you go and you stitch it with a lovely piece of silk or a little bit of ribbon. I'd like to do that on the insides. It'll cover up those seams and it'll give it a really pretty little edge. These are similar. I just love this technique. Here's another piece of it. So you do it, just you bunch it up just a little bit, and then the way that you sew it down, it just will give it a nice edge. So we will cover up those seams with something lovely. We'll probably do those a little bit smaller, but kind of that idea. So it's a nice soft piece. So I'm going to go cut these pieces. So I have to do 3 separate pieces just because that's the lace that I have. And in fact, I might have to dye another piece really quick. I might have enough. I am also going to use this on the inside top. Okay, so when I turn it over, well, and this is on the batting, but I'll put it on the top piece as well because mine are going to be covered in lace. So the inside will have this as well. So I'll get those pieces cut and then I'll come back and I'll show you. We'll pin them on here and get ready to do this outside piece. Okay, so as I'm finishing up here, just pinning this down, and I just need to cut this last piece. So what I've done is my lace fit right along there and around, so that's one piece, and then I just put pins right here across where that line is, right where it's going to fold, and then mine was a little bit short, so I cut this piece. This piece fit. It was a little bit short, and then this one is as well. But I'm not bothered because I am going to, as I mentioned, we'll put a little. We will put a little bit of lace across here, something nice and flat. And this will kind of mark off our folds. And I'll probably do some lovely little satin or silk ribbon along here with this flat lace, and then do a little bit of that technique that I showed you. It'll just give it a little something right here that sort of breaks that up. And also, so again, so I'm not bothered that this didn't quite fit. I was cutting very odd shapes, and so yeah, I just pinned it all down. And again, if you have a piece that's just long enough that covers your whole the whole entire thing, you might want to just mark off the 2 sections where we'll stitch that. But mine were really wonky, and so I just pinned it all down and then cut along here, cut that excess lace off. So this piece is actually, I'm going to leave that. My napkin was cut just a little bit short. I'm not a very precise crafter, I will say. I don't think perfection is necessary. I swear. And you can fix things and cover things up and all kinds of things. I don't like to stress too much about perfection. So there we go. So this outside is done. And then I did grab my inside piece because I wanted to do this same lace. Again, this is going to be like this. It's going to be, um, here's the outside. And then on the inside, that top little flap, I just went ahead and did it the same as the outside. So that piece is going to be the same on both sides. And then, of course, I'm going to have all the other decorative stuff here. And then I plan on doing something really cute right here. Just there's not a lot of room to actually put anything, and it might be a little odd when you're that's the flap. So something decorative will be cute. And then two really pretty pockets with some nice laces. So now that I have this piece done, what I'll do is I'm going to machine stitch just around there just to stitch the lace on. We'll probably do a little bit of hand stitching later. I'm going to be putting lace all the way around the edges and again through this center, and I'll be tattering that and just giving it a nice look. So I will go and just stitch these pieces, and again mine are going to be, I've got this little gap here, and then we'll come back and we'll work on the inside. So once we have this outside piece done, or at least that first step, it'll, the lace is sewn on the outside. Then we will start designing our little pockets, and this one is a little more in depth. And so I'll be back with these sewn. I just wanted to clarify really quick before I go and sew this. Um, we do want to sew, so I would sew all the way around the edges and then go ahead and like I'm going to have to do 2 lines right here, but go ahead and sew that. You don't want this, go ahead and sew these. We'll sew them again when we're putting it together, when we sandwich it and we have the inside piece done, and then this piece will be done, and then we have our batting in between. We will stitch that again, but after we have a couple of lines here stitched, just for structure, right? Just to keep that batting in place and to keep your lace in place. We don't want this all, loose all through here. It'll be stitched a couple of times, but then when we're all done, we'll add this little pretty lace and some ribbon or whatever. We'll do a little decorative piece right here. It'll cover up the stitching there. And so yeah, don't feel bothered that we'll have a couple of lines here that are stitched. We'll be covering those up. Okay, so I'll come back with this all sewn in together. Okay, so now I have all of the lace sewed onto here. And again, you might have one solid piece. I had to do this in 3 pieces because just my pieces of lace weren't that big. So one thing I want to talk about as this piece right here, I've rounded this and it was a little bit challenging to sew that. You can square it off. That's actually much easier. You could also do more of an envelope style, as I mentioned. Sewing it on a rounded edge was again, a little bit tricky, but what I did, and I had to do it a couple times, um, so what I did is I cut a couple of little darts in it so it wouldn't pucker, and then that didn't really work. So then I just redid this piece right here, and I just did a lot of pivoting. So I just sewed and then, lifted up the foot and then just turned it just a little bit and kept going and then pivoted. And I just kept doing that, and it came out nice and flat. So I'm happy about that after a couple of tries. So that's fine. You might be a better seamstress than me. So, okay. So now this piece is done and ready, right? So we would be working on so we need to work on the next piece. But before we do that, what we're going to have to do with this is anything that we're going to sew on it is we need to do that now, because then the stitching is on this side before we layer the pieces. So And this is also a fun part. This part is kind of the decorative. We get to start to decorate here. So what I was thinking I would do, what I plan to do is I'm going to outline the whole thing with a tiny bit of trim lace. This is just a nice little piece. I tried several things, of course, as you do. I tried some little roses to go along here, but they were a little bit bulky for trim. I don't really want some big lace on it. I mean, you might not want it really lacy around the edges. So all kinds of different things to try. Just look through your stash but I landed on just this little bit of trim and I can actually I can tatter this, but it's actually already a little bit tattered. This is an antique one and I dyed it, of course, because I don't ever leave anything alone. So what I'm gonna do, um, what I'm gonna do is I'm going to put this around the whole entire thing. And then I will be putting this same trim on the other side, the inside piece. And then when I'm sewing these together, I'm going to just bring these two pieces together and I will probably hand stitch because I'll have the two layers of lace, but I might just even just do a tiny bead of glue along there. I'm ultimately going to hand stitch it, but that will just keep it in place. I just prefer to do that than pin it all down, and I don't really want to do machine stitching. It's just, it gets to be too much. I've already got some stitching there. So I am going to take my glue and I'm just going to add this little tiny piece of trim around the whole outside. So that's, and again, I'm just going to use Fabri-Tac. This is so great on fabric. No water content in here. It's acetone based, so it doesn't, so it works, it works really well. So I'm just going to take a tiny bead of glue and glue this down. So I will do that, and this is going to go all the way around. And then the other thing was I needed enough to go around both pieces. So I need a fair bit of this. That also determined what I was going to use. So I'm just going to glue that around the edge. And then I am going to, again, once this is all sewn together, I'll do some little, a different type of trim. I'm going to add a little bit of silk ribbon and a bit of lace on here that will cover those up. But again, that's going to be one of the last steps. So lace around the whole outside, and then I need to think about the decorative bit here. So what I'm going to do, what I've decided, and I've been playing around with this a bunch. So I've just gathered some of the pieces out of the kit. And of course, I love this label. So I'm going to be putting that on the front here. And again, if you'll, and I just do this when I'm just working on something. I just try a million different things and kind of see how it's going to look. Obviously, we all do this with our pages and our projects. So it'll have that nice little tiny edge of old lace. And then I'm going to use this label. Again, I printed this one on fabric. So this one I could either sew or glue down. Either one works. I'm also going to back this with some cheesecloth. I want it a bit scrappy around it. I might even do, I probably don't have enough of this, but I might do just a tiny little layer of lace. I'll find another one. So I might do cheesecloth and then a little bit of lace. Just a nice little edge. Really adds a lot. So those will go here. I do plan to put some of this old uh, silk ribbon. So I'm going to tie a bow here and I'm going to likely put it over here in the left corner. I'll make that, bigger tails on it and such. But I'll put this in this corner. I'll have some silk, a silk bow. And then, of course, the cute little charm with the scissors and such over here. Okay, so that's kind of, and again, some lace underneath. And then I thought, I might just I just started going through my appliques. And I thought, this might look really cute with just one right on the edge there. And I'll put some little pearls in here. So that will be, and I'll cut this off. These appliques are great. You can just use pieces. And I'll probably put some tiny little pearls in there. And then I did find, of course it's not sitting here. I have some old buttons that are covered in satin. I got them at an antique store. And I had one sitting right here, probably rolled right off the end of the table here, but I'm just going to put a little antique pink button right there. I think that'll be my closure. And oh, there it is. Gosh. Okay, so I'll just put a little antique button here. And then I'll make a strap from the back of just of lace that comes around and closes there. So that's kind of what I decided on this front piece. And again, I have the option here. When I put the cheesecloth and the lace around this, I could stitch it to the flap here. And if I wanted to stitch it, I need to do that now before I put the layers on it. I think I might just glue this down. This would be really difficult with stitching. And again, Fabri-Tac works great. And honestly, I think I might just glue all these pieces down. And I don't want to glue this, I don't want to put this on yet because it will very much get in the way while I'm fussing around with the middle piece and all of that. But so I've sort of designed my flap here. And for the most part, I'm just going to glue all that down. Again, I'll save this till it's finished. That'll probably be the last thing that I put on it. So I've designed that. So then when you open this up, now, of course, I'm going to have the other piece on here. So I don't do anything with this because the other piece, I will decorate the other piece, the inside piece. So this won't even be seen. So now I need to do something here. You could do a little pocket, which would actually be cute. I have one right here that you could, but you want to keep in mind that that this might be, you're gonna, you'll be pulling it this way and that way. So you don't want something that if you're going to tuck something in there, it would fall out. But you could do one that's closed up if you wanted extra space, but just some cute little pocket like that would be fun. What I decided I would do on this, I'm just going to do some flat decorative things because I don't want to fuss with it. And again, this one's going to be tools. So it's already going to be a little bit bulky and fussy. So I don't want to add to that. So what I'm going to do is what I did is I took one of the cute pictures and then I just cut it. I do this all the time. I will grab digitals and I will cut pieces out of it and change them around. And it's my favorite thing to do. Make it just different. So I cut this into two pieces. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put one here and one here. So, and this is just my favorite. In the little haberdashery of the heart, creativity lives. And I think that's a really cute sentiment to put just right here as you open it up. So what I'm going to do, and this is just paper, it's very thin, and paper does not stick to fabric all that well. It's just too fragile, if you will. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do that saran wrap technique, and I'll do that next. So what I do is I cover this with saran wrap, and I put a piece of muslin underneath, and I put parchment paper on it, and I iron it. And this gives it a very cool texture, that melted saran wrap. And then it also adheres the muslin to the back of it. So now I've got a nice sturdier piece and I'm doing fabric to fabric and lace. So that's going to glue really nicely. I don't want to sew this piece on. So I'm going to do that with both of these pieces, which I will do on camera and do that next. And I just thought, maybe I'll do another piece of an applique. I can put this rose here, maybe These are great. I'll probably cut some of this off, maybe do it like that. I will back this with some cheesecloth and, a little bit of lace underneath and cheesecloth, so it's got some texture there. It might be cute to put a little, I could even cut one of these little flowers out of one and just maybe put that there with a little pearl. Just a couple little ads there. But yeah, so I'll turn these into a nice fabric piece that are sturdy and add a little applique. And again, this lace will be along the edges, so that'll be cute. So that'll look way more finished. And then ultimately I'll be doing something along this edge, probably something a little more substantial. Okay, so this will be really finished and nicely decorated. So that's what I'm going to do there. You can use, I mean, I made some of these labels in one of my tutorials. That's cute. This is cute. I thought this was really cute. I considered this one, with an applique there. This little handmade is a love language. I think that's darling. But I also just I want you to see the size. This is a little bit small. I mean, I could print a bigger one and do the saran wrap. This is actually on fabric. So I could make a bigger one. That's really cute. But I think I really do like this double piece. Then when you open it, it's a little more substantial. But these are the things you want to think about. When you open this up, and again, that's going to be on the other piece. I think I might do this handmade one there because then you're also going to see this with that. And of course, I'll put lace underneath and there'll be lace around it. And I might just put a little lace cluster here or, I'll decorate this. And I don't mind this kind of pink, just leaving this just slightly plain. I've got plenty of lace going on. But this is going to be on the next piece, so we won't think about decorating that just yet. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do on this. So the front of it's going to be really decorated. That piece is done. And then it'll be and then the back is the last part that we'll do before we, get started on the next piece. And I think I really love this label, and I've done this one on fabric as well. I think I might just put some lace underneath it and put this on the back. I think that's a cute bit for the back. It's another little label, and I think that would work. And I might and again, this lace is just really going to finish that out. And then there'll also be some pretty lace here and here with a little bit of ribbon in it. And then, of course, I'll put some cheesecloth underneath. But I think that's decorated enough. It's always nice to give your projects a little bit of breathing room too. We don't have to over decorate every single space. So yeah. And again, that ribbon is going to look really cute with some lace along here. And that'll be on the top and the bottom. So that's my plan. And that's just with some, playing around, get out your appliques. I tried a bazillion different things. Do corners look cute? Um, there's just so many options. These are lovely. I tried this in a few different ways. So gosh, so much. Some of these I just bought dresses at, an op shop or a Goodwill and cut them up and found beautiful pieces just off of, different things. This little bunch of flowers might be cute on the corner of one. I often cut them up. This was a robe, just a little thin, robe that I just cut it all up for some appliques. So, yeah, get your little bit of things out. These are really lovely. And again, way too white. I dyed them. I dyed one to just use on the front here. So, or on the inside. Okay, so I will get started on decorating this. And so let me get my iron and the saran wrap, and I'll be back to create this piece. But I'm also just going to glue this little lace along the edge. So then I'll be right back with that section. Okay, so I went ahead and just glued on that little tiny bit of lace all the way around. And again, I will glue on this same lace to the other piece, and then I'm going to do a tiny little stitch with a really fine, this is a lightweight thread, but I don't want too many stitches along there. So, and it's just nice to keep that in place. The glue is going to be really sturdy. And then this is a super lightweight, but it's a lovely color to go with it. So I've glued all that on, and it's just amazing how much better it looks after you do a finished edge. It just makes it so lovely right away. Okay, so before I do the saran wrap, which is what I'm going to do here, we'll just go ahead and I was just scrapping around looking for how to, the things I wanted to do behind this. And, I was just going to say, this is a really good, it's kind of like cheesecloth, but it's a little tighter weave. This is just a scarf that I got at an op shop or thrift store, and I don't think I paid a couple dollars for it. So always look for scarves. I've got several, and they're just such a great item to pick up. They're great for our journals. And then I also saw this, which I think I prefer. So again, at a little antique shop, I picked up a whole basket of doll clothes. It was only $5, and I've gathered so much nice antique lace out of it. I was astounded. That was one of my best deals ever. So this was on one of the little dresses, and it's that really nice antique netting. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut a piece, and this actually tatters so nicely. The real antique stuff. I just love it. Cheesecloth looks great too. So any of those options are great. And then also on one of the doll clothes, there's this tiny little, or it was a little baby dress, this little tiny trim. And I think that will be really cute right along here, along with that netting behind it. So I'm going to just cut a piece, and I'll tatter it a little bit, and I'll glue this on. And then I'm also going to cut this applique, and I think what I want to do is put some little pearls on it. And these were just oh gosh, like Hobby Lobby or craft store, and there were different sizes. And I think these teeny little delicate pearls will be cute right along that edge. So I will kind of get these little pieces together. I'll come right back as I'm finishing up. I hate to have you sit and watch me do these things. They're pretty straightforward. I'm just going to glue these pieces on, and then I'll cut this, and then I'll get the ribbon ready and get all of this ready, and then we'll come back and do the saran wrap. But I'll get these pieces started. Okay, I'm just going to jump back on here now that I've got a few more bits done. So I took this cute little label, and I cut out a piece of that netting, and I did that little tiny edge. This would be really cute. You could do just about any lace around it. The lace that I'm putting around the whole journal, or the whole trifold, would be actually quite cute as well. I don't have enough of it, but just that tiny little edge with it's kind of scrappy. So you can use just about anything. In fact, this is a little bit, finished. I would often do something more scrappy like that. But anyway, so now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, again, take this seam ripper to this netting and do that all the way around and tear it up. You can hardly see it. I've been, setting it all the pieces down here. You can't see much of this, but what little bit you do, it just gives it some texture and some scrappiness and, you know, kind of a vintage sort of look. Anytime we tatter things, you know, you just kind of get that feel and that look. And this tears so easily because it's that nice antique fibers. Okay, so I'm just gonna tatter that up, and then I will show you the applique I'm working on. I just put a few little pearls on it. Just makes all the difference. I just love details. Details are my favorite thing. I think that's details and layers. Those are, I just feel like that's where you get such depth, and it just gives things such a nice look. Okay, so that's all scrappy, just like I like it. So that's just going to lay down here, and I think that looks really nice with that edging. And then, so I'm just gonna glue this down. So I'll lay that out like this, and I'm just gonna glue it. And then I've been working on, so I just took that applique, and of course it was huge. It was way too big. And I just cut it up. Here's another one. So it was larger like this, and it had these kind of big beads on it. So it was quite long, and I just cut out some pieces so it will fit this. So I'm going to tuck this. Actually, I'm going to fold this back up so we get a better feel for where that edge is. Okay. So, there we go. So I'm going to, again, center that, and then just get that nice and centered. And then again, I cut a piece that would work. And I actually put on these little tiny pearls. I just love these. This is the Paper Studio. These are from Hobby Lobby. And there's 3 different sizes of pearls. And they're just flat backed, and they're sticky. And you can just pull a whole line of them. They're really nice if you wanted to do just like a whole straight line of them. But I just took the little teeny tiny ones, and I just went around here, and I went around there. I just felt like they looked better than these really large ones. But, you know, just, and then I put the medium sized one, I put them in each one of the flowers, and I think I have one left. So I'll show you that. And then I also cut this piece out of the applique so I could piece that together. So actually, let me put this other little pearl on here. I love these appliques that have flowers because you can put, I've got some cute little pink sparkly ones. You can put something that looks sort of like little diamonds. I often put pearls in them. I think that just makes them look really sweet. Okay, so my applique is ready. And then I'm going to add that right along here. Just fits really nicely along the edge of that. But it was kind of missing a piece there, and the other starting out the big piece was way too big. So I'm just going to add that in here. And I often do that, just cut them up so they work for your project. Okay, so I'm going to glue all of that down. Okay, so that's ready. The one thing I will do is sew that button on. That button just keeps getting away from me. I have several of them, but the other thing is the ribbon and this, as I mentioned before, I'm going to wait to put this on because it's too bulky and I've still got lots of work to do. The other thing, so there is somebody in the group that has this same cute little charm, and I did mention this in the preview. This one came from Bead Landing. It's called Pemberley, the Pemberley collection, if you will. Um, it's been discontinued a long time ago. I bought one many, many years ago. And I did find this one on, I think it was Poshmark or something. But anyway, if you're really attached to having this super cute one, there's lots of cute sewing ones out there, lots of charms. If you even want that on here, you could put another flower over here. You know, you could, I'm going to put a bow in this charm. You could, you know, you could put anything there. But the one thing that I wanted to show you, just because I know Cheryl in our group here, she has this same one and intends to use it. I was finding that having it on this side, um, see, the bulk of the charm is over here, and it actually fits better over here because this scissor is next to the label and you have all this business. But I liked it over on this side. So literally what I'm going to do is I'm going to trade this ring and put it on this side, and then trade the charm piece and put that one on that side. So then the charm bits will be on this side, and then the scissor will be next to the label. It'll be just a little more cohesive. And then I'll put again this a silk bow here. Um, so there we go. So that is the first piece, and then the button. But I'm going to glue this down. But I just kind of wanted to show you, I just added some little pearls to this. I cut up an applique so it fit, did the little scrappy bit so you can hardly see that, but that's okay. And then I'm going to change out that charm a little bit, and then these will be last. That'll probably literally be one of the last things that I do here. Okay, so that little first section is done once I just glue those down. And then the next section right here is where we are going to use, I'm going to show you that saran wrap technique. Okay, so I am going to grab the saran wrap and something to cover the table here. And I also have an applique with this one that I think I'll cut up. This is too, obviously it's too large, and I'll just use a few of the pieces, but it needs something else. I'll do maybe a tiny little lace cluster with a heart in it or something there. But I'll start with this technique I want to show you. Okay, so I've glued these pieces on. So that is all finished. And this, again, I'll put on last, but I just wanted to see how that looked. You know, you can mess with a bow like forever, but I like how it's turning out. I'm not 100% convinced on this button, maybe. It's a little bit different pink, but I'm going to wait on the closure and just see how it shakes out. Okay, so then what I would like to do is, I think I'll go ahead and I was going to show you this one second, but I think I'll just do the back one because it's quick and easy. So what I've done is I just took that cute little tag that's in the kit, and this is printed on that fabric paper, and I just stuck some lace around it. And in fact, it's a lace I didn't ever really like, and but I did like the edge of it, but I tore it up anyway. So I liked it. I want it to be nice and scrappy. So that is just going to sit in the center here. Looks much better once this is finished as well. And then of course we're going to have those edges done here. So again, I'm just going to do something simple. I was thinking I might also just add a little bow with a pin and maybe a tiny charm, maybe just a little tiny heart. I've got some other cute little, that one's a little heart in an envelope. There's a few different charms. Maybe I'll do one on the middle page too, but I might just use the little tiny heart and maybe a pink crystal on this safety pin. Um, so the first thing I'm going to do is just glue this down, and I'll just lay this out. Well, actually, what I want to do is get it right dead center, so maybe it's easier to see with this closed. I always try to lay things out. I think glue is going to get on something underneath, but this is fine. There's lots of layers underneath it. Okay, so I'm just going to glue that down. And again, I just glued some lace to the back of it and shredded it. I didn't, oftentimes I'll do a couple layers like I did on the front, but with this lace background and then a nice, this is kind of a heavier lace. It's not quite as delicate. So I think with that, heavier lace and then just shredded, I think I'm good with that. And you can also give me some feedback about whether you want to see me do a bit more. I know I explain and then kind of tell you how I do something, but I know sometimes classes and tutorials can feel really long if you're watching every single detail. I mean, like gluing on lace, you don't want to watch me for 20 minutes doing that. But if you're interested in, seeing a little bit more of how I do things beyond kind of my explanation, I'm happy to do that as well. I am going to go into more detail on the middle page. So I'll show you the saran wrap, and then I'm going to glue some lace around it and shred it a bit. So there we go. So I am happy with that. That's such a cute label. I just love this kit. But I was thinking maybe just a tiny little embellishment there. Again, I just love to do the tiny details. So what I'm going to do then is I'll use just a tiny little pin, not a bulb pin. That would be quite a bit bigger. And I'm just going to use one of these little tiny pink crystals. I've got little keys in there, lots of charms to choose from, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a tiny little pink crystal. It's amazing, even just the tiniest detail. So I'm going to close that up with the little pink crystal on there. And then I will grab a jump ring, and I like to put, here's my little jewelry tools, and I'm going to just use this little tiny heart. But I do like to use, I like to put the jump ring just at the base of the pin. If you put it on, it kind of sits a little wonky. So I'm just going to add that little tiny charm. It's a little tiny heart to this base of the pin and close that up. A little jump ring. Needs to come this way because it's going to get away from me. There we go. Okay. So there we go. Maybe just the tiniest bit tighter. Okay. So now I just have a tiny pin with a little crystal and a little heart. And then I will, I'm just going to tie some ribbon, just thread it right through the pin and tie a little bow. Sometimes it's cute if you just tie a little knot too and leave the little strings there, but this could probably do with a bow. Need a little more to work with there. Okay. My goodness, you have to excuse my hands. I always have glue and ink and I've always dyed something, some color, often just the dark brown, and I just always have, my hands are always an absolute mess. So I apologize. Okay, so just a little bow there. And again, this is that same pink silk. So I want to echo that. No, it's caught on my pin. So I kind of want to echo that from the front. I just bought the silks. I always buy the silks in a couple different widths. Like the one on the front is really wide. Well, this isn't. That is stuck there. Okay. There we go. Put my. See, this is the fussiness that I feel like you probably don't want to watch. Everything's a little fussy when you're crafting. Okay. There we go. And the bow's way too big, but it's a good start. Okay. I just want a little bow. Okay. Then I'm going to cut that off. And I always save these little tiny bits. You know, for one, I'm a professional hoarder. But secondly, I have a whole bin full of tiny scraps. And, you know, every now and then I just pull out the whole little basket full and just create something out of tiny little scraps. They're great for little fairy journals and things. So don't ever throw those tiny bits away. Okay, now I'm going to take, so there we go. So that's just a cute little teeny tiny bow, and you can just see the little crystal. And I'm going to take that and I'm going to just, this bow wants to give me some trouble. I'm just going to tag it right here on that lace. I might secure it a tiny bit better, but there we go. So just that little tiny detail, I think makes that really cute. Okay, so we've got the lace, the scrappy lace around it, and we've got our little, our little detail. So I think that's fine for the back. Okay, so now we'll do this center piece, the center section. Sorry for the noise. Whenever you use this Fabri-Tac, it's really important to keep your windows open. It's pretty toxic, so you don't want to be breathing it in too much. So I have to have my windows wide open. Okay, so now we've got those two sections done. So now we're going to do this one, and this is such a fun technique. I use this a lot. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to set this aside, and I always keep this lace here so I know I'm in frame. But I'm just going to put down a piece of felt so it's not bothersome with my iron. Okay, so what I'm going to do next is I want to do this saran wrap and adhere this to some fabric. And this is just some of that bed sheet. So this is just, and I'm going to cut it close to the edge. Again, you could make it bigger and then cut, just shred the fabric around it if you want to keep that fabric as part of your layering. But I will, actually, you know what? I will just keep a little bit because I can always cut it off. Then I have a choice. So I'm going to cut a piece and I'll give it just a little bit of a border. Okay. And then, okay. So there's that piece. Again, this is just copy paper. I love this technique. I do it. I use it a lot because it gives your piece of paper, your image or your label or whatever you're working with, it just gives it a whole different dynamic. The feel of it, it then turns it into a fabric backed piece, and it's just great. Okay, So what I'm going to do is you just take just your regular old plastic cling wrap from the kitchen, and I'm going to take a piece. Okay. You know how fussy cling wrap is, even putting it on your food. Okay, so what I'm going to do, let me get this better in screen. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and I'm going to basically wrap the cling wrap around it. You want it on the top and the bottom. Okay, and I'm going to cut around it. Okay, and I do want to cut this pretty close because the saran wrap is going to melt into, basically everything around it. So I don't want a lot of extra. So I'm just going to carefully cut this. Okay. So now it is sandwiched onto this piece of cling wrap. There's a little extra here. That's also another reason there we go. If I'm going to cut around, if I'm going to cut this edge right off, so then it's just backed with the fabric, then I'm not too fussed about the cling wrap because I'm going to cut it off. Okay, so here we go. So I'm going to set it on the fabric. Okay, and then nice and flat. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a piece of parchment paper, just your regular baking paper, right? Parchment, and I'm going to take that and I'm going to lay it down right over the top. This one is the same texture on both sides. Okay, so I'm going to lay that down, and then I'm going to grab my iron. And you want, for heaven's sakes, you want a nice hot iron, not steam. You don't want any steam. For some reason, my iron did not heat up. I'm going to go off screen for just a second and get this to go. Okay, well, that was the craziest thing ever. My iron literally just died. I was ironing fabric this morning and it worked fine. And I literally just went to several different electrical outlets and it no longer works. Literally died right as I was starting to do this. So getting a little bit resourceful, I have this little tiny one. Is that the cutest little iron you've ever seen? This wasn't really, it really wasn't getting quite hot enough. I think this is made for like iron-ons, and I'm pretty sure I probably bought it for my grandkids, or probably because it was so cute, but I love tiny things. Okay, but that's not quite hot enough. So I went to the trusty straightener, and this works great. I think I'll use this instead. So what I did is I took that fabric piece, covered my image in saran wrap around both pieces, put the parchment paper on top, and then you just want to iron it. And it kind of takes a little bit longer than you think, but use a hot, dry iron. I always just put my iron on high, and it takes a little bit, but I'll tell you what you can do. You can peel this back and see if it's stuck to the fabric yet. And this one is actually quite well. It's really hot and it has stuck really nicely. And I kind of like this. I might just do it in the future. This was literally brand new. I don't ever straighten my hair. I don't know. It just came in handy though. Had to take the thing off, the tag off to open it up. So that was funny. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to peel this back, and then this has now, it's now embedded onto this fabric. It's super adhered to it, and that saran wrap has just melted it. So it gives it a really nice texture, and now it's fabric. It's a fabric backed piece. So I'm actually just going to cut this right along here. And I will tell you, if you're going to distress your picture or do anything to your photo, your picture, your image, do it before you do the saran wrap, because you can't really do much to it after you do that. So when you go to ink it, it just doesn't stick to the saran wrap that's on top of it. So make sure your image is completely ready to go. So I had curved the corners and did the bit of inking before I did that process. And I did that on both of these pieces. Okay, so I will do this again from the top on this second piece. But again, I've done this, if you watched my tutorial on making those banners, this is what I did in that video as well. It's just a great way to give your image a nice texture, and it's now really quite sturdy, and of course it's got fabric that will adhere to things, so that you can glue fabric to fabric. So okay, so let's do this again. So again, I'm going to take my piece here, and again, this is just the piece of paper, and I did the corners, so I rounded the corners, and then again, it's just a piece of paper, so I'm going to grab the saran wrap. I wasn't too fussy. I had to put some more saran wrap on that one because the other one I kind of messed up once I had the debacle with the iron. Oops, sorry. And then, so I'm just gonna, so I'm not too fussy with this time, because I'm just gonna cut it off. Okay, but you do want it smooth, or otherwise you're gonna get places where it's thicker. So I'm just gonna cut that. My street is usually pretty quiet, and of course there's been several big trucks go by. Okay, so I'm going to smooth that out, and that one's got a little, I'm going to turn this over. That one has a little bump on there that I don't want on the front. Okay, so I'm going to turn that over. So I've got a nice smooth piece, and again it's a little bit beyond the edges there, which I'm not bothered. Now I just need a piece of this piece of parchment. Oh, there's my, okay, so I'm gonna do that. Then I'm gonna just pick this one up with the fabric underneath, since I have to do a, normally you can just lay your iron down on there, but since I'm doing this nifty little trick, ooh, that is, oh boy, I'll tell you, this works. It's probably just way hotter. That worked quickly. I can tell, I can see through the paper, and I can tell that that has adhered it really quickly. I feel like your iron takes like several minutes. This might just be my fantastic new trick. Okay, that is very well stuck to that. Okay, that worked out great. All right, so again, I'm just going to trim around those edges. See, this is the stuff. Does it just drive you crazy? You can fast forward if this is too tedious. But there we go, just rounding the last corner. Okay, now what I'm going to do with these is I am going to, and if you have a little place where it pulled away just a touch, I can add just a tiny bit of glue. That is now, it's got that saran wrap, so it's, it's not just your paper to fabric, so it's, sometimes that's going to wrinkle up and give you a bad time. So, but now with that new texture there, it actually works just fine. So you can do a little glue if it pulls away. So no fuss there. Okay, so now, all right, now I have these lovely pieces, and then what I'm going to do is, bring back my project here. Okay, and then I want these offset just about like this, and you can see it kind of, well, maybe you can't see, but it gives it kind of there's a little bit of a shiny texture on there. It's modeled just a little bit, and it's textured. So then what I would like to do is I want to put some lace around this. Now this is a much heavier lace, wider, but what I'm going to do is I will glue this quite close to the edges. Just so it's not super thick. I don't want that wide of a piece of lace. And I'm going to put this all the way around. And then once I glue all that down, I'm going to, I'm going to shred it. Okay, so and I'll shred it pretty close because I just want a little kind of a scrappy edge on there. Okay, so yeah, that's what I'm going to do. So I will prepare these two pieces real quick with the lace around them, and I'll come back and just finish up the distressing. Okay. Okay, so I put that bit of lace. I started out with, it started out thicker like this, and I did put it around both of these pieces, and I've just been shredding it, and I'm going to finish up this last row here. And I always kind of, you end up having a kind of a crossover in the corners, and so I tend to, you want to really kind of cut those down and get those consistent with the rest of the trim around it. So I'm just gonna once again shred away at this lace. This one's quite thick, or as far as the depth of it. So I'm actually cutting into it pretty far. So I will get these pieces finished up here, and then we can wrap up this whole the whole front of the whole side of this will be done. This is the last bit. And once I cut things, I tend to like to re-shred them so they don't have that blunt edge on them. Okay, so there we go. So there's my little scrappy pieces. And again, they're backed with fabric now, which I like, and they have a really nice texture. Okay, so I'm going to, I've been playing around with this a little bit. One thing you have to keep in mind is how far this comes down, because I started out putting another applique, and I did put I pulled a little lace cluster and put it here, and some flowers, and kind of had it a little over decorated, just a smidge. And then I pulled this down, and I was like, oh, you can see all this stuff down here, which you might not mind, but I just want to have it covered. I don't want, I don't want bits from underneath to sort of take away from the front. So that's just a preference thing. So I've got my two pieces here, which are ready to glue down. And then I thought I would put, again, I went through all kinds of little applique things, and I kind of came up with putting this little flower here, and I want to cover that. I want to put a little heart there. So I'll put that there, and then a couple more little flowers. You know, and when you do things like that, threes are always a good thing to keep in mind. Three just tends to work well, or you know, odd numbers. Even numbers, your eye just likes that kind of offset sort of thing. So, so I think I'll put these pieces here, and then, and I'm using this little kind of brass heart. You know, I thought about doing this little. This one's really cute with the rose and the diamond, but I do want to keep in mind, so that does look pretty cute. Um, I could go with either, but this is gold and kind of bright, and this is just something I think about, so I'm just gonna tell you. Um, so when you look at the front, does that look crooked? Okay, when you look at the front, I'm gonna have lots of brass, or you know, that you know, kind of antique brass there. And then on the back, I've got this little brass heart and a little antique brass pin. And so when I'm choosing something for here, I just feel like this little brass one will kind of keep that continuity going. So I am going to glue these down, and we'll be done with the whole outside of this, which is great. And then we can start on the inside. I'm okay with that just being slightly seen, or just some of the lace, that's fine peeking out. But I just don't want, you know, a good majority of the design underneath to show across the front. I really like how the front is looking. I like the elements on it, so I want to kind of keep that settled. So let me see just one more time. Okay, about here. This could go here. It's good coverage there. And then this will go here. And I like to just overlap these a little bit. Again, you want to just kind of work with, you know, how you like to design things. It's just one of those things. It's just preference, and I'm telling you, people ask all the time, like, how do you know where to put this or that? And it's just a matter of try this, try that. Does that lace look good? No, I need something whiter or softer, or more delicate or heavier, or and then what elements look good. You just try this and try that until really it just sort of clicks. The thing, whatever it might be, is like, oh, that works right there. But gosh, I mean, some people think it's easy for people. It's like, I think, you know, we all just do that. You just keep working at something till you get an eye for it, and what looks good to you. And you know, that's the other thing about developing your own style. You want to just go with what you love, go with what you like, go with the colors and the textures and the design. And what looks good to you. It's always great to learn from lots of different artists and lots of different people. And then at the end of the day, you really want to kind of develop what you really love. Um, so, yeah, these are all times that you can practice that. Oops, sticky. I have washed my hands so many times and they're just still covered in glue. Okay, and then I love that soft pink. This was honestly just it was a little robe that had all this pink, these little pink flowers in the trim on this little robe at a thrift store. I just love finding stuff at thrift stores. And everything I look at is just potential. Whether it's clothing, that's just fabric, or, anything you're looking at. How can I alter it, change it, do something different with it? How can you use it? It's so fun. I love to give something new life. That is a really chunky edge right there. So, but here we go. We'll let that glue dry for just a second. I don't like how this is really chunky right there. I'm going to shred that a teeny bit more, and there's a lot of glue in it. Okay, so now let's just have a look, because we are done with the outside. Okay, so here we are. Again, that's peeking out just a little, but that's okay. So there we go. So we've got the front, and again, we'll think about a closure as we get closer. I'm not sold on that button now, but I do like how that looks. And again, this will have a nice edge right here, so that'll be pretty, and up here, so that'll be cute. So there's the front, and then we've got this opens up to this, so that looks fun. I'm happy with that. And then the back of it, we've got our little label and a little embellishment there. So cute. So I'm feeling good about this. And again, I will add this last big embellishment and these pieces here after we put it all together. So, so there we go. We're done with the outside, and now we will move on to the next piece, which is just going to be, we have the batting, and then we have the other piece to work on. So we'll do that next.